of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our September 20th, 2016 meeting. Please note the council is in full attendance. And I know I have one introduction that's going to be made. Before that, I want to do items from council. Anyone has anything on council they'd like to pull or discuss? Or
I just had something I wanted to say, and I feel really silly saying this, but I want to remind everybody watching this and everybody that they know to think before crossing the street, and that we spend money on striping so that we have crosswalks, and those are safe places to cross the street. And the middle of a 40-mile-an-hour highway is not the safest place to cross. And I'd like people to really stop and think about that. Crossing 5 lanes of Houston Highway is a dangerous thing, and I would not do it.
thank you. Always good advice. Shouldn't feel silly about doing that. I had a question. The online permitting, we went over that a while back. Mr. Bognight, did you request a review of that? Is there any quick update? Is it working or?
Garrett Mike can do a quick up. I think we talked about that back in June.
Just real quick, is it just still work in progress?
No, the online permitting is open, and our staff has been out to several of the our contractors' offices to show them how to use it and whatnot. And so it's open and being used.
Okay.
Not real heavily yet, but it's open.
But it still has issues that
It's not perfect.
bugs in it that aren't worked out yet. I'm not happy with that software company that's supposed to be writing the software.
Okay, well, you were testing it, right?
Yes, and it's
Okay,
still got issues.
okay. Well, I was just curious. I lose track of time, and it was in June when we talked about it.
It was.
And, okay. Maybe come back at a point in the future. I'd like to see that again. And I won't, no particular point, staff, if y'all want to, bugs being worked out, do you have a deadline or a point where you feel it's complete enough? Sore subject, huh?
It's been a headache.
Yeah.
I don't know that we even have a timeline we received from the software company on some of the bugs we've turned in. To
Okay.
be honest with you.
Well, I'll talk with y'all outside the meeting about it, and I was just curious if so it's being used.
It's being used.
Bugs in it,
It's
okay.
not perfect, and we're not through.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, we're not accepting it yet.
That's correct.
Being done. Yeah.
okay. One thing that I really liked is where the service request, where people, this is not related to that, but just where people can put in a help request, and it's got all the little topic areas and departments like a pothole or, is that heavily used? Is there any, I don't know if y'all can answer that. OC, is that?
It is heavily used, and I know that because anybody that submits one of those service requests that doesn't remember to click one of those departments, it comes to my department. And so there's requests every week that come to my department, so I'm assuming it's pretty heavily used. I don't know, we could probably get some analytics from James and come back and report that, but I think every department that receives those service requests is getting quite a few online.
Okay, well, that would be kind of neat just to see that. If it's easy to do, don't go to too much trouble. And maybe at some point in the future, when there's time, we could just go over it in a meeting real quick, just to show it, even if it takes 3 to 4 minutes.
And I know Scarlett, the city secretary's office, if I'm not mistaken, they run at least 25% online garage sale permits, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little more, a little less, somewhere around there. But even that has been pretty widely used among the community.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to get us all off track, so thank you for that. I'll talk some more.
I've used it. The response from the city is fantastic, whether it's potholes or brush pickup.
Yeah.
Very quick email and then a phone call.
Very good. So have I. I've had really good use of it. I just want the public to know. Now, if we tell everybody to walk out in front of their house and look and then go back in and put a pothole request in. We might have a lot all at once. Lynn's department might not like that, but, you know, I just want people to know, so often people will get upset about a situation they see, and I ask them, well, did you tell us? We don't see everything. So I always remind people, help us out. So anyway.
I was also just going to add very briefly that our website that we initiated 5 years ago, and we're 2 years out from a redesign, a free redesign from a website company that hosts our website. That's one of the things we'll be looking at is analytics on a lot of these online service requests. But that website also has dynamic resizing, so it's compatible with any sort of mobile device. So if you're on a cell phone or desktop or an iPad, you can request those service requests on any device.
Very good. Thank you so much. Council, is there any other item before we? Seeing no other items from council, I think our police chief wanted to introduce someone formally.
Well, good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. I'd like to take this opportunity to formally introduce to council the police department's newest assistant chief. Meant to do this a little while earlier, but we got a little tied up with a couple different things. So I want to take an opportunity to introduce John Ray as our new assistant chief. I'm going to ask him to come up here to speak real quick, but I will tell you that he has hit the ground running and he's learning an awful lot about our business already. And I think that I can safely say that I made a good decision. It took a while, went through a couple different processes. Things happen for a reason. He's also already jumped in and well involved in our community, so it's worth, you know, I'm really pleased and happy to see that. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce John Ray.
Well, thank you. It's actually been 6 months to the day. Yes, and I think I've met with just about everybody here, and I've had a ball working with everybody. My wife and I are beyond thrilled to be here and enjoying our new home. And again, as I've said personally, I'll say publicly, if I can do anything, be of any assistance, call me. I'm at 911. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Made it through the 6 months of heat. You probably will stay, so we hope so. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into citizens' communications now. If anyone would like to come forward and speak about anything whatsoever, now's the time. Okay. No one, okay, we do have a taker. And just name and address for the record and limit your remarks to 5 minutes out of courtesy to everyone else.
Thank you. I'm Dave Sather. I live at 3807 North Vine Street. I come to you today to speak on behalf of the Bronson home. For the record, I am arguably the biggest proponent of capitalism and entrepreneurship probably in this room.
You want to bet?
We can argue it over a drink sometime. Furthermore, I know that there's some controversy over the future and intent of the William Offer building. I have nothing but the belief that the people that have purchased that building are honorable and good folks and happy to have new people living in Victoria or continuing to contribute to it. However, when I go home at night, I know that I sleep well, comfortably in a quiet home that allows me to rest up and be productive for the next day. One of the main missions of the Bronson home is to provide those same basic opportunities to kids who've been basically discarded by society. There is obviously significant research all of us have probably read about the importance of sleep. If the kids of the Bronson home do not get enough sleep, they don't perform well in an educational environment. They don't get necessary level of education. They don't become productive members of society. If they don't become educated and productive, they become an even bigger burden upon an already overburdened social welfare program. In a situation like this, I think that it's time for all of us to step forward, speak our minds. It's interesting to me that in considering having a bar next to the Bronson home or Patty Welder or all the other entities that are next door to the William Offer building, it's interesting in a study done by the Waste and Resources Action Program a curbside trash vehicle picking up glass bottles will generate noise of 85 to 125 decibels. To put that in some perspective, the Center for Human Performance and Health conducted similar studies and determined that noise of that nature next to a children's home would be similar to a jackhammer 50 feet away, a subway train at 200 feet away, a hand drill, a power mower from 3 feet away, a snowmobile, a motorcycle, or a power saw 3 feet away. My point in discussing this is that there are places in which a bar can function most effectively, especially when considering the neighborhood it resides in. Furthermore, while the most conscientious bar owner-operators can work to control what happens within the walls of their establishment, they have very little control of what happens outside of it. Bottles emptied into a dumpster, loud music, and traffic at midnight or 2 a.m. are not conducive to the development of young children or a residential neighborhood in general. As such, I'm not sure it makes sense to have a bar next to Patty Welder Middle School or next to a children's home, especially when those residents are already most at risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Citizens communication still open.
To the mayor and council, my name is Fred Hobbs, 1104 East Brazos Street in Victoria, Texas. Again, to Charmel and Lynn, I'm not in trouble. I'm here to address, I used to work, so I'm here to address the concerns about the Bronson home. I sat on the board. I count it a privilege to be able to stand on behalf of these young kids who doesn't have a voice for themselves. And I know it's a time and a place for alcohol, and adults sometimes can't control themselves. Kids are always out to play. And sometimes we don't, when we get a little bit tipsy, we don't look at the concerns of our young people. As we look at that, then I'm asking the council to please consider the safety. The young lady just said a little while ago, it's hard to cross 59. Can you imagine a child crossing as they leave school, crossing in front of a bar? And as they pass in front of that bar, those people who are inside that bar sometimes don't see them coming, and an accident could happen. So as you look at that and the safety of our kids, always remember, and as you make that decision, that kids' lives are at stake. Every child is a bundle of possibility. They're not only they're not only now, but they're our future in Victoria. And if we find ourselves cutting them short by allowing a bar to be in the vicinity of the Bronson home, where kids have already been displaced and sometimes feel like they're not wanted. And now they can't sleep at night, they can't study at night because of the noise and the racket that's going on around that bar. So if you will please, ma'am, and please, sirs, consider that and when you're making a decision in regards to the Bronson home and the bar that they plan to build or reconstruct on that property. Please, sirs, and please, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Tiffany Seiler. I'm the manager of the Wellness Community, which is just next door to the Bronson home and short distance away from the William Offer building. I'm here tonight to implore upon the City Council for consideration of the requested ordinance change and express my dire concern for a bar opening in such close proximity to the wellness community. Our population, unlike the Bronson home where it's children and obvious concerns, is adults. Adults who suffer from mental illness, and many who are in recovery from alcoholism and substance abuse. There are a variety of concerns that I have, that Gulf Bend Center has, with a bar being in such close proximity to the wellness community. We're working hard with our individuals, and the individuals themselves are putting in a lot of work, personal work, to move forward with their life, to leave the past behind, but they're human, and these temptations being so close and so available, I'm afraid would really place a higher degree of difficulty in their lives. The majority of our population that live at the wellness community have been diagnosed with either schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depressive disorder. That's the target population served through Gulf Bend Center. And when we look at the effects of alcohol abuse on individuals just with schizophrenia alone, it involves tremendous setbacks in their road to recovery. In individuals who have schizophrenia and regularly consume alcohol experience social consequences. They experience a higher incident of relapse. There's an increased risk for criminal activity. And then there is an increase in the likelihood to abandon treatment. So choosing alcohol to feel better rather than medication. Of course, at the wellness community, we're practicing recovery through varying degrees of treatment and lifestyle, but of course, medication is one of those. I'm afraid that for the wellness community residents, a bar that takes less than 2 minutes to walk to would be an incredibly difficult temptation to withstand. So I appreciate your consideration on the matter as it pertains to the neighborhood and to the wellness community.
Thank you. Citizens communication still open? No one else jump up? I'll go ahead and close citizens communications. And we'll move into ordinances. C1 does not have a public hearing.
That's correct. Item C1 is an ordinance amending Chapter 6 relating to cemeteries to address pauper burials and enter at night for special occasions, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for codification and savings, and declaring an effective date.
Council?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion and second. I understand that all the sites are sold, right? I think I've asked this before. One of the strangest businesses we're in. Is that right? I think so. Okay. I know that's not germane to this ordinance, but. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions about this?
I have an amendment, please.
Yes.
We had asked last time for city-owned cemeteries to be included in the wording of the ordinance instead of just saying any city cemetery.
Yes, ma'am. We made that amendment last time, and it is included in the final version of the ordinance, which the mayor will sign tonight if the ordinance is passed. It is not in the version that is in your packet. I apologize for that, because we typically just take the ordinance that was in the first reading and roll it forward to the second and third reading. So even though it's not reflected in your packet, that amendment was made and approved at the last reading, and it is in the final version.
I just have another question. Okay, I understand what you're saying. You just took this one and rolled it over. But where do we go and see where this is actually applied? Is there somewhere on the website that we can see that this actually took place and it was incorporated into the ordinance?
Normally, we would try to include that in the packet for the second and third reading. It didn't make it in there this time, and I apologize for that. But typically, we would include those amendments for you to see on the second and third reading here. I was made aware of that mistake this afternoon, and we did confirm that the version of the ordinance that the mayor has for signature after this meeting does include the correct language, excuse me.
Okay, but after he signs it, is there somewhere where we can go and take a look at what we asked to be changed?
Yes, ma'am. After he signs it, it will be posted to the website, as all of the ordinances are, on the city secretary's page, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to
And
make sure.
you have the copy for me to sign with you here.
I do, yes.
See it after a while if you want to check.
Could it be put into the minutes or anything like that?
City secretary just confirmed that it is in the minutes.
It's in the minutes when the amendment was made.
From last time, okay.
So I withdraw the amendment.
Okay.
Actually, that's not what I was asking. I was asking whether the actual document that he signs maybe could be put into the minutes. I was just curious.
It could be, yes.
I don't know if that, answers, to me, it makes it more clear.
Added into the minutes of tonight's meeting.
Mm-hmm.
As an attachment, it sounds like what you're
Yes,
asking
as
for
an
is an
attachment.
attachment.
And then we'd be able to see it and know that amendment was there.
Okay. Okay. Everybody squared away? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Passes. D2, C2, excuse me.
Item C2 is an ordinance amending Chapter 14 relating to occupational licenses, taxes, regulations to update the city's code of ordinances relevant to any calling, occupation, profession, trade, vocation, or business upon which a state license or occupation tax is levied under the laws of the state, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for publication, codification, and savings, and declaring an effective date.
We do have a public hearing on this, even though I believe everyone mostly spoke already during citizens' communications, but we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on C2 specifically. If anyone would like to speak now, they certainly can. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on C2 and entertain a motion.
We adopt.
Second.
A motion, a second. Discussion, questions?
I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
So what happens to the locations, or I guess how many? And thank you for providing this map of everything out there. What happens to locations that are going to be affected by this that aren't currently affected by it? Besides being grandfathered, then what happens?
Have a change of use in the building, and they have to be re-permitted, then if it changes use, then they won't fall under the new ordinance. But they're grandfathered right now, so as long as there's no change of use.
Say if I had a liquor license at a place that was not, was not affected by the current ordinance, but this change would now make it current. And I wanted to sell my business. Someone else had to apply for a liquor license, had to apply for a permit at the city. What now?
Well, there's not a change of use. It's going to be another liquor store, and Jarrett's probably going to have to help me out a little bit. But at the end of the day, they can always do a variance. But
I'm trying to avoid that.
I understand, but
If all you're doing is selling the property, it was a bar yesterday, it's going to be a bar tomorrow after the property's sold, it's still a bar. There's not a change in use. It would be allowed to continue as a
But you
legal
still have to go
non-conforming.
apply for the permit at the city.
No.
No?
No, it's a TAB.
Well, you're going to have to apply for a TABC permit, yes, because it's a new operator.
Different owner, yeah.
Different owner.
Different owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that TABC permit asks if it conflicts with any ordinance or against any ordinance in the city, doesn't it? Discussed that last time?
As long as they have been, have a liquor license for 30, as long as it hasn't closed for 30 days and not had a liquor license use, they could continue with the license. But really, when they come in for a new license as a new owner, it's a whole new license. If they close for over 30 days, then the measurement comes into play. As long as they have continued, it's been a continued liquor license and it hasn't stopped, then there's no measurement required. Does that help?
Yes.
So any remodeling of a place would have to occur within that quick turnaround of 30 days. To me, I'd just rather, for making an impact on businesses, I would rather see it that if you have a location and it was a bar, it is forever, it can be within that location.
How many are affected?
All it takes is one.
I did not count exactly. I think there's 12 to 18 or something like that. It's not as many as I thought would be impacted by it.
12 out of?
Oh, there's 140.
Okay.
Something like, there's over 100 of them. I'm sorry.
About 10%.
Yes, sir.
I'm concerned that that's going too far the other direction, because over time, uses of properties do change. And you know, I can foresee someplace that's a bar now and the use of all the property around it changing to the point that they stop operating as a bar just because so much has changed. But now you've got this spot that is forever grandfathered. And, I mean, we're not looking at that same situation with the Brownson home, but we kind of are in this, we're having that same type of discussion that I can see that we would be having. So I have a problem with
Yeah, the
with
conversation I'm trying to
grandfathering
have
forever.
doesn't have to do with the situation at the Bronson home.
Right, but
This has to do with current business owners, whether they sell their business, they still have an opportunity to sell it as what it is. Someone can change it and modify it how they want their business to look inside. And what I'm reading right now is if it's not done within a 30-day period, you're out of luck.
Well, what we're talking specifically about renewing the license is separate from a building permit. So someone could immediately apply for the license and that's done within that 30-day window and then spend the next 6 months remodeling the interior of the building if that's what it took or what they desired to do. Does that help answer? I mean, because there are two separate issues there.
If I may, Mr. Bognight, the language that you're looking at in section 1410D about the 30 days, it may be possible to address your concern with an amendment to that section where it currently says, should such a place of business discontinue the sale of alcoholic beverages, it may be that if the license lapses, that the grandfathering is lost. Because I understand what you're saying. If a convenience store on the corner closes down for 31 days, they may lose their ability to go back and get a liquor license because they will no longer be licensed here. But if I remember correctly, I think TABC licenses are a 1-year license. Do you remember that?
2 year.
It's a 2-year license? Thank you. And so it may be that during the period where they currently have their license, until it comes time for their renewal, they could continue to do those repair works. An amendment like that may address your concern.
Okay.
This is the first reading. You could always get all that straightened out for the next reading, just a thought.
The second one, what is a church, hospital, church, or daycare builds next to a red dot?
That would be no different under the changed ordinance than it would be if we did not do the change today. If you own a convenience store that sells alcohol and I build a church next door to you, then at some point in the future, there's a chance that you may lose your grandfathering.
So, one more time, I kind of lost that.
Okay, so if you have a convenience store and you have a beer sales permit, and I build a church next to you, you get to continue selling beer because you were there first. Whether or not we adopt this ordinance, there becomes a risk that at some point in the future, you're either going to stop selling beer for 30 days or change this and it becomes the end of your license. And you have the opportunity to lose your grandfathering at some point in the future, regardless of what we do with this ordinance today.
Okay.
I also have a question. On the 300 feet, weren't we gonna go with the 60 feet from property line to property line, or did that change? Last time when we had the map,
We were going to adopt the TABC rules for the measurement. Ours were different, the cities were different currently, and we're proposing adopting the TABC rule. And I think it's 300 from property line to property line. We did some was it door to door?
Maybe door to door.
Door to door.
Councilwoman, is this
this
the
is more
picture?
stringent?
This is
But
more
the property
stringent.
line
Yes,
to
ma'am.
property line was more stringent than this.
Yes.
It is?
Yes, it is. Because under today's rules, to use the William Offer example, it is more than 300 feet from front door to front door.
Right.
From any of these facilities. But if we go property line to property line, then, you know, it's 60 feet of right of way away from both the Bronson home and Patty Welder. So this is more restrictive, what's being proposed.
This one right here is more
Yes, ma'am.
restrictive than the 60 feet?
It's more restricted than currently, sorry. There's 60 feet of right-of-way between William Offer.
5 according to this
And
picture.
Kind of counterintuitive. If it was 100 foot away, right, it would be legal, right? But this is saying it has to be 300 feet away.
Okay, I see.
So that 60 foot that you're discussing would make it actually closer.
Jared, on the map, what's the yellow buffer? Is the green the property line and then the yellow?
the yellow buffer is the 300-foot rule applied to each of those. There's a legend at the bottom. The green is schools, blue is a hospital, purple church, and pink are the daycare or childcare facilities.
This revision would bring this more in line with the state code, so you wouldn't have a city code conflicting with a state code, is that correct?
That's
It would
correct,
mimic
yes.
the state.
This amendment mirrors the language in the state alcohol and beverage code.
But our current ordinance isn't in conflict with it. It's in line with the state.
That's correct.
One positive benefit would be not have a confusing codes contradicting state law.
And if I remember, when we first brought this up, council changed it, made it more lax to accommodate that place over Turtle Dome, yeah. And a future council could come along and change it again.
So how is this gonna affect the William Offer property? Will it make it not available for a bar?
That's correct.
If it was adopted,
Okay,
it
I
could not be
understand.
used as a bar.
And also, there's been no permits issued for that building. But, you know,
Any site
That's-
plans or anything?
No.
Okay.
I have something in the ordinance, but not related to the current discussion.
Well, this is as good a time as any.
Okay. There were a couple other, looks like small or ministerial type changes, but I got very excited when I got to 14-1031 because it's talking about junk yards and salvage yards and inoperable vehicles. And I was hoping that that might be a section that would deal with one of the problems that I was, several people have talked to me about of having inoperable cars stored in front yards. And I was wondering whether that section does deal with it. It didn't seem like it did, and when I read it a little further, I wasn't sure it did. So my question is sort of, is this a place that could be broadened to cover something like that, or is there another ordinance somewhere that we can work on that might cover it?
This section could be broadened to include that, but I think it would probably be better placed over in chapter 10 where we discuss nuisances, have junk vehicles already defined as a nuisance. Chapter 10. In that chapter, we use the state law definition for what is a junked vehicle. So any vehicle that is unlicensed or that has a license expired and is inoperable on public property for 72 hours or on private property for 30 days is a junk vehicle and is declared a nuisance within.
And I guess then I'd like for us to look at that because a lot of these vehicles are not unlicensed. And they can sit there for a year before the person decides whether or not to renew them. So I'm wondering if we could take a look at that because I know that is something, I believe even code enforcement has a problem because there's not really something that addresses it.
Certainly can. State law specifically allows a city to adopt a more restrictive definition of what is a junk vehicle. So we certainly can.
I would suggest you work with the city attorney and make sure what you intend to do is feasible and practical. Can't make this decision right here, and then come back, and then we can request to put it on another agenda.
Okay.
As a reminder, we're doing reviews of all the city code chapters, and chapter 10 will come up sooner.
Okay.
Rather than later.
Well, in
But
preparation
it's
for that.
something that we can, yeah, and Ms. Scott has mentioned that to us, so we'll look at language that might accommodate in chapter 10. Yes,
Okay.
but you will see chapters on a monthly basis because we're updating all of them, so.
Well, that'd be, I didn't want this to go by if it's where it belonged. Thank you.
I think on the amendments that I want to propose, I want to spend some time with Mr. Goosh and just get them worded properly instead of stuff on them. So
Okay. And then
we'll bring that back on the second and third reading, I will.
Okay, that's fine with you.
But y'all know where my thoughts are, where I'm headed with that, and so.
Good. And like you said earlier, I do appreciate the good map, Jared. These are very helpful. Council, are there other questions or discussions on C2? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Passes. We'll move to consent agenda.
There are 2 items on the consent agenda tonight. The first is the approval of minutes of the special meeting of August 30th, 2016, and the regular meeting of September 6th, 2016, the special meeting of September 8th, 2016, and the special meeting of September 13th, 2016. The second item is a resolution approving the purchase of Microsoft Enterprise Client Access licenses from SHI Government Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $28,860, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary for the purchase and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, resolutions.
Item E1 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to terminate an interlocal agreement with the County of Victoria, where the city agreed to provide transportation services to mental health consumers and declaring an effective date.
Council?
I move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any questions?
So what'll happen after we pass this?
Well, it has an effective date of November
Or if we
1.
pass it?
I've visited with the county judge about our intent to cancel, so they'll just assume the transports. They're doing transports right now, so we'll just stop transporting.
They didn't have any major problems with it.
The judge did not know.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? Not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
E2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the energy services contract with Optera Energy Services Incorporated, originally Chevron Energy Solutions Company, to amend the frequency and testing method for performing measurement and verification services, reducing the total cost by $36,240 and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E2.
Second.
Motion and second. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Ma'am.
Okay, I understand what we're doing is instead of taking a measurement on the second year, we're going to move it to the fourth year, which will be in 2017, and, then spreading the cost. My question is, these are the smart meters that we installed?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a problem with that, with the way the meters are read. I mean, my water bill has got 1 month that has 0 usage, and it's got a huge amount that I'm being billed for. When is it, how do you determine that if I'm not using any water? Or if, where do you come up with the numbers? It's supposed to be read each month, but it's like this,
It's actually read every 15 minutes throughout day and night. And that information is sent then to the utility billing office every hour. And so then whatever for your billing cycle, whatever that date is for your bill date, your reading is then calculated from that date back to the previous read date. So those reads come in every hour, but they're actually taken every 15 minutes.
Okay, and you're billing in the thousands?
Billing in
not
thousands
in
of
the hundreds,
gallons.
in the thousands of
Thousands
gallons?
of gallons.
I know that with the light company, I can see everything, it's a graph. Do we have the capability to see that online through the city? I thought that was one of the things that we were going to get to do, and it's like, I don't see it.
I'm going to ask Donald to reply
Okay.
to that. He's much more familiar with that.
Yes, if you remember, we came before you, I don't remember how long ago it was, several months ago, and went through the customer portal, and we showed
Right,
where.
remember? I asked for the
And
detail.
that's what we have. That's what we currently have available is that.
That's as far as the detail that you can give me, is that I can go into the portal and look at that?
At this time, yes, ma'am. That's what was available at the time, and that's what we paid for.
Now,
If we want more, we could possibly do that, but that's more money.
But if a customer has individual questions, they can come in and we can generate and show them. In other words, what's available for the customer to see is what was shown to you previously just by going online. But if you have questions about your account or whatever, you can come in and we, obviously through the system, have more and could show you.
Okay, because I do have a client that brought me a stack that high of all his bills for the last 2 years, and he says, why? And I said, well, I have to ask. But I'm going to tell him to come in and talk to you to show him how those meters are read, because like I said, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what the report's gonna be like once you get this, next report for the measurement. I'd like to, you know, find out how that's turning out.
Okay.
The software that we have in the office will drill a lot deeper. We can
Okay.
go, we can look at down to the hour, basically.
Okay, that'll be interesting to see, you know.
Well, what was the question? Was it too much water? Is he
Mhm.
saying it's not, oh, okay,
Yeah,
maybe
there
there's
was
a
too
leak?
much water in, no, well, I mean, I don't know that there's a leak, but,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 37,000 gallons in one billing, and then the next month there isn't, you know, so that doesn't make sense to him or to me.
What's your average household usage?
7 to 8,000.
Okay.
We're right in there. Yeah, just have them come in and
Okay.
we'll drill into it and see what's going on.
Oh, okay. I'll
But on
tell
the
him.
web portal, it's a year look back, right? Isn't that
By
right, I
month?
remember?
Yes, it's
By month.
Yes,
Bar graph, I think, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are here, E2.
You have a motion and a second.
Thank you. I remembered this time. We do have a
Okay.
motion second. I like this program, and I know it's interesting. Y'all have learned a lot in the last year. Found lots of leaks, a lot of strange things.
Well, and we are now contacting customers on a daily basis where because the software will flag continuous usage over, like during the nighttime, and so we get those flags every day, and we contact customers. It looks like maybe you have a toilet running or something because you're using 2 gallons a minute all through the night, and that's not normal consumption. So that's a good additional customer service that we're able to offer as a result of this.
Brand new service, yeah. Great.
I have heard from one person that they got a call like that and really appreciated it.
Very good.
I'm gonna test you. I'm gonna turn my hose on at 3 in the morning and see. Oh, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do
Call
that.
in the morning.
I'm not gonna waste
We
water.
appreciate the revenue.
Touche. Okay.
That's true. That is, you know, saving our citizens, and of course, it's saving our water too, but it's a loss of revenue.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. E3, excuse me.
Item E3 is a resolution awarding the Oliver Welder Reconstruction Project to Lester Contracting Incorporated for their low bid of $1,278,588.75, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion to approve item E3.
Second.
Motion second. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
The map that has the red line on Wheeler,
yes.
that's just gonna be seal coat?
That will be milled and overlaid,
Okay.
but we're not digging out the base and replacing it like we are on the other streets.
Okay, so there's no pipe work that's gonna go into there or anything?
All that utility work's been done.
Okay. And on the oak side, you're gonna go ahead and cover those ditches and put curb and gutter or not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Long overdue, but yes.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Okay, no further questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. E4.
E4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Arcadis US Incorporated for the Victoria Aquifer Storage and Recovery Demonstration Project in the amount of $169,329 and declaring an effective date.
I move to adopt.
I'll second.
Motion second. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Exciting. No
Yeah.
questions, but it's a great thing.
It is. We'll see it again. We'll be bidding bits and pieces over the next many years. Okay, city manager reports.
Okay, the first one, Scarlett, with appointments to boards.
Mayor and council, there are two boards that need appointments. The Library Advisory Board, on that one, Rosa Miscues was appointed to an unexpired term, and that term is up, and she would like to be reappointed to that position. The other one is the Parks Commission. There are 3 members whose terms are going to be up: Mark Hinojosa, Jamie Brown, and James Weirden. Mark Hinojosa has indicated that he would like to be reappointed, and Jamie Brown and James Weirden are ineligible due to term limits. I did place 2 applications that I received this year for the Parks Department before you that you could consider, or we could, advertise for additional applications.
Here they are. Okay, so at our next meeting, you'll bring back something with Rosa's, say that last name again?
Miscues.
Miscues in it, and I suppose if council wants to nominate someone else, they certainly can, or just leave it blank. Mr. Halpaska?
I guess this is a question. At times, we've had 5 and 6 applicants for some of these boards, and of course, we only get picked sometimes 1, sometimes 2. Just because we passed over one the first round doesn't mean they might or might not be interested. Do we contact them, or do we have a deadline or a drop-dead date we don't contact them? Or?
Well, I usually try to contact anybody that sent me an application in the past. The 2 applications that I presented for the Parks Board are ones that I received this year, but if you'd like for me to contact anyone who's applied in 15, I can certainly do that.
It would give us a larger selection pool.
Okay.
And if council feels that that would be a positive thing, perhaps that could be done.
Sure.
I would like that too.
Because at times we've had 5, 6, 7 people applying for one position. Doesn't mean, they're great people. Just we had to make a choice, so there could only be one winner.
Well,
and it would sure like to give them another chance if they had an interest in doing work with public office.
And one of the reasons we do a report first, it puts the notice out to the public that we're looking for commissioners.
Absolutely.
And so anybody that's interested in applying can do that too.
Well, sometimes they don't always watch us on TV, and sometimes they don't always read the newspaper, so
Wow.
trying to be more thorough.
I was going to comment that one of these applicants that is given to us for the Parks Board actually rated the library number 1.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it wouldn't hurt to have, go back to 2015 and, because we had a lot. That's a larger number. I don't want to make too much work for you, but.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem. I can do that, and I usually, if I contact them and they're interested, I ask them to submit a new application.
Okay. So we'll be ready to vote. Mr. Gush, that's you next week, or 2 weeks, whenever we do that.
Thank you, Scarlett.
Okay.
So is there a consensus to bring Rosa back, though, as the library or not?
Yes.
Okay.
She just started.
Okay. So John is going to do a presentation on planning.
Mayor and members of council, the Texas chapter of the American Planning Association has presented its 2016 Certificate of Achievement for Planning Excellence to our Development Services Department. The award recognizes cities in Texas for increasing awareness of professional planning, maintaining a professional planning staff that meets certain professional criteria, enhancing neighborhood and citizen recognition of planning efforts, encouraging the funding of professional training for commissioners and staff, and aiding in economic development and community image. So tonight I want to hand this award over to Jared Mayfield and with our Development Services Director.
Thank you, Jared. So John has the next, as you all know, we've recently adopted the comprehensive plan 2035, and part of that has an implementation chapter. So it's our job to make sure the implementation moves forward. And so John's going to talk about that strategy for the next 2 years.
All right, thank you. The City of Victoria's 2035 Comprehensive Plan was adopted back in April of this year, as you'll recall. You'll also probably recall that in the Future City section of that plan, which is the first half of the Comprehensive Plan document, there is a chapter on implementation, which identifies the various methods that are to be used to implement the plan. It also contains, toward the end, a community action agenda. The community action agenda is the fold-out page that I put a copy of it in front of you for this evening. It's located in the plan toward the end of that implementation section, and it lists 15 initiatives that were identified toward the end of the comprehensive planning process by City Council, by Planning Commission, and the Plan Advisory Committee as high priorities for implementation. These are not the only items out of the plan that are currently ongoing and being implemented, but they were identified as high profile or high priority initiatives. The agenda also assigns timeframes for implementation, and it breaks it down into years 1 and 2, years 3 and 4, and years 5 and beyond. And some of the items are listed as ongoing. They've been happening already. We want to keep doing those. Those are good things. The action agenda also identifies the type of action that each of these initiatives includes. It could be a capital improvement project, programs and initiatives, regulations or standards, partnerships and coordination, or targeted planning and studies. And then finally, it assigns action leaders, which are the city departments and or outside organizations that are responsible for each initiative. And this is what it looks like. I know you can't read it on the screen, but I wanted to draw your attention to it. But tonight, what we want to talk about is the action agenda, the 2017-2018 action agenda, which addresses those community action agenda items to be initiated in years 1 and 2 of plan implementation. So it's not going to list all 15 of those high priorities. It's only those that come up in year 1 or 2 or that are recognized as ongoing activities. The action agenda that we're talking about this evening lists the specific tasks that are associated with the implementation of each of the action agenda items. It identifies the responsible parties, or again, the action leaders for each task, and it assigns deadlines for each task. The action agenda follows the city's fiscal year budget, beginning with fiscal year 2017, starting next month. And we'll be doing annual progress reports at the conclusion of each fiscal year, the first being next September in 2017. Moving on to the actual initiatives that are identified in the action agenda. The first one is the Unified Development Code, or UDC. The action item is to prepare and transition to a unified development code that brings together and better coordinates all development-related regulations and administrative processes. We have a number of chapters of city code that deal with development regulations. We have a subdivision and development ordinance. We have sidewalk requirements in another chapter of code. We have sign ordinance in yet another section of code, and on and on. What this project would do is to better organize that, all of those development regulations, all of the procedures related to how you get a development approved in Victoria are all brought together into one common document, making it more user-friendly and better to administer, easier to administer by the staff, less bureaucratic. There are some specific tasks that we've identified, and it's really just a schedule of how to go about getting that ordinance created. It's putting together an outline later this year by Development Services, creating a subcommittee that would work with Development Services on preparing a draft of the Unified Development Code. Finally, legal review. Now we're well into 2018 in this basically 2-year project, doing legal review, and then finally public hearings and comment period to get the ordinance adopted by the end of 2018. It's a major undertaking, and it's our intent is to take care of this in-house using planning staff, which is mainly one of the reasons that it's going to take a good period of time. It's a major undertaking with a lot of legal review at the end, and it's pretty substantial.
John, I have probably a naive question. A little earlier, we were talking about the fact that we're looking at all of the ordinances and making some changes as are appropriate, and our staff's doing a great job of keeping track of what needs to be done. So this sounded to me like you're just going to be pulling some sections and putting them together. What makes this so much more significant?
It's specifically to do with all the development regulations. You have, what, 22, 23 chapters in city code. You know, only 3 or 4 of them touch development in one way or another. And so those are the only ones we want to bring into this code. It's a developer comes in and says, I want to do this project. Where do I find your regulations? Instead of sending him to 4 different chapters of code to find the different things that apply, it's one document. You can find it in one place.
But it's not just organizing the codes differently. It'll be a total review of what needs to be changed.
Sure, the entire
code.
the entire development review or development code will be reviewed, but the main purpose is to make it organized, make it user friendly, get it all in one place, and in the process, make sure are there things about it that don't work today? Do we need to go back and fix some things and do that all at the same time?
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Move on to beautification efforts. Continue efforts to enhance Victoria's image and appearance at key entry points and within the community. First task identified here is actually a new initiative. It's implementing the Not in My Town campaign, which is a new anti-litter education campaign that we're working on. Environmental Services is leading this task. We actually had kind of the organizational meeting for a group that will be a committee implementing the Not in My Town campaign about a month ago. It was just a beginning meeting to start talking about ideas, but the plan is to actually create an educational program about litter. We would add it to the educational programs that we take into the schools, that our Environmental Services Department takes into the schools. We do recycling, we do air quality, we're going to be doing litter. And we're working with a number of organizations all over the community and business owners and managers all over the community as part of this committee that will implement the campaign. So it's just getting started. We see some of that starting to roll out in the fall of this year.
John?
Yes, sir.
The Keep Victoria Beautiful group has subsided?
Yes, sir.
For the present time, do you expect it'll be?
I have no way of knowing, Mr. Halapaska. As far as I know, they're no longer active. Second item under beautification is to continue mall and target area drainage cleanups. This is something our Environmental Services Department does monthly, sometimes semi-monthly, but it's cleaning up, picking up litter in those areas that in our very densely populated retail corridor, very, I guess, high visibility areas that tend to collect a lot of litter, especially in those drainage ditches after it rains. So that's an ongoing task that we do usually about monthly. Entryway cleanups as needed, where needed. These are other areas along most commonly along the Bloomington Highway, the Port Lavaca Highway. We occasionally go out and do a cleanup along those highway right-of-ways when it really gets bad. And again, that's Environmental Services Department as needed. And number 4 is to develop a strategy for an enhanced entry corridor from US Highway 59 into town. You'll recall throughout the comprehensive plan process, as we met with the steering committee and with council, there's a lot of discussion about the entryways into town and them not being very attractive, and the need for an attractive kind of signature entry to direct people into town or into the central part of the city from US Highway 59. This task would start to explore that concept and try to come up with ways that you can, either US 87 or whichever one we decide is the priority, how you can go about improving the looks and enhancing those corridors coming into town. So that would be kind of a joint MPO CVB activity that's targeted toward the end of to wrap up toward the end of 2018. Next item is transportation system management, which is to use transportation system management measures to maximize the traffic capacity and safety of roadways that cannot be widened further. First task on the list here is to implement the hazmat route, the hazardous materials route, which most of the legwork, the early planning work has been done. And the implementation is basically dependent upon funding. And as funding becomes available, primarily funding for the purchase and installation of signage, and it is a significant number of signs that are required to implement that route. Second item is to continue long-range transportation planning. That's a federally mandated task assigned to the MPO, and obviously that will continue. They are required to update their long-range transportation plan every 5 years. Next is to continue to upgrade traffic control management, the traffic control management system, which is a public works ongoing activity. And then to continue to enhance traffic flow and capacity as needed through the budget and capital improvements project. And what we're talking about here is we have a number of thoroughfares in Victoria that are not going to get any wider. They have the number of lanes that they're going to have. It's because the ability to acquire enough additional right-of-way to add lanes, it's just not economically feasible. And so the likelihood of it happening is almost zero. And we have several of those corridors. But that's not the only way you add capacity to a thoroughfare. There are intersection improvements that can be made to add capacity because most of your congestion issues are caused by intersections. So if you can go into an intersection by a little bit of right-of-way, put in a right turn lane, a left turn lane, you're going to add capacity to that through lane that for cars that are continuing down the thoroughfare, and that's one of the most effective ways to add capacity to your thoroughfare system. There are others. You add a median, you increase capacity, you increase the carrying capacity of that thoroughfare, and there are others, but that's what TSM is, transportation management, system management. Oops, I didn't mean to go forward. A couple more. Implement the Ben Wilson Corridor improvements with UHV. Of course, that project is dependent upon UHV funding and when that funding becomes available. And finally, support the continued development of US 59 to interstate standards, which is an ongoing thing that the MPO keeps up with TxDOT on a regular basis. Of course, street rehabilitation and maintenance is a high priority. We hear about it every day. This is to continue investments through the city's annual budget and capital improvements program to target funds based on the annual street inventory. Of course, these are Public Works Department responsibilities that occur annually and in one case ongoing. Obviously, annually updating the street inventory. Continuing our preventative maintenance program through the budget and CIP, continuing street reconstruction through the budget and CIP, and then finally just the day-to-day street maintenance that's necessary when streets fail, when you have potholes and street failures. So those are pretty cut and dry. They're ongoing activities and they're good ones, and we want to keep doing them going forward. Our next initiative in implementation is the Hike and Bike Plan update and the Sidewalk Master Plan. And it's completing efforts to prioritize investments in areas conducive for walking and biking to boost safety and make destinations more accessible. We have five tasks under this initiative, the first of which is to acquire planimetric data to build a sidewalk inventory. When we ordered our aerial photography, our updated aerial photography that was flown early in 2016, early this year, we also ordered planimetric data to be generated from those aerials to identify certain objects on the ground, fixtures on the ground that can be picked up digitally and then created as GIS layers. Sidewalks is one of those things that we asked for. The planimetric data, I believe, has been delivered, Jared, this month or last month. It's undergoing QC right now, and so that's on schedule. The next step in that project is to take that planimetric sidewalk data, create a GIS level that'll identify gaps where we have gaps in sidewalks along thoroughfares where maybe a business or a piece of property was passed over and hasn't been developed yet. maybe a business that was developed before we ever had a sidewalk requirement. We do still have some of those sidewalk gaps or sidewalks to nowhere that need to be connected to create better accessibility for pedestrians. The next activity here is to create a sidewalk master plan, which is something that Public Works will take on once Development Services finishes with the GIS work, and that's targeted for July of 2017. Next, we have reviewing and updating the hike and bike plan. That is a joint project between Development Services and Parks for late 2017. And then after that's done, we will update the thoroughfare plan to incorporate elements from both the hike and bike plan update and the sidewalk master plan into that thoroughfare plan. Yes, sir.
It was announced at the MPO meeting that TxDOT was going to front some money for an extension of the Lone Tree Hike and Bike Trail. What is the status of that?
Not sure. Now, we applied for a grant through TxDOT to install a sidewalk that would have connected near the Lone Tree Hike and Bike Trail, but that grant was not approved. We did not accept it, or we did not receive it. We weren't selected for funding. I'm not sure if that's the one you're talking about. I'm not aware of a.
Go down, and I'm trying to.
Leary Lane.
Leary Lane.
Leary Lane
Yeah,
was.
that was a grant, a TxDOT grant application, and we did not make the funding.
Not make the funding.
That's correct.
You know why?
Too many applications, too much money, and too many applications for too much money for the amount they had available.
Okay.
I mean, it's how it's all. It's a competitive deal. It always is, and very few projects get funded out of the ones that are submitted.
I mean, I know they're scored somewhat
Sure.
objectively.
Absolutely.
Activity, location, flow, okay.
All right. Let's move on to CIP, enhanced CIP process, which is to assess the process and implement procedural enhancements in terms of the range of potential projects and how projects are framed and prioritized. These are city manager office responsibilities to continue to improve the CIP process, to identify, prioritize, and fund essential capital projects. And secondly, continue to expand the scope of the CIP process to address capital projects related to public safety, parks, general municipal buildings and facilities, in addition to those traditional street utility and drainage projects that we've always done in the CIP. Of course, water supply and storage was listed as a high priority in the plan. This is to continue efforts to secure additional water rights and protect existing rights, and to invest in additional water storage capacity. I have 4 tasks here that are the responsibility of the Public Works Department. They're completing the Plant Number 3 improvement project currently. That's scheduled to be completed in October. We are scheduled next fiscal year to update the water and wastewater master plans. And the Tower 5 pump station construction is scheduled to be complete by October 2017. And of course, we just talked about the ASR pilot project this evening in one of your agenda items, and the implementation of that goes through September of 2018.
That's not the start of it. The way it was
Correct.
written, implement in 2018.
That's completion for that project. Some of these are a little different in terms of how they're worded. The Drainage Solutions initiative talks about pursuing regional approaches and other solutions in areas where drainage challenges are a prime constraint to land development and economic development. The tasks that have been identified in years 1 and 2 are: 1, develop a drainage outfall inventory in middle 2017 to mid 2017. Second, to continue to enhance and repair outfalls through the budget process and CIP planning process. That's an annual process that we continue. Continue outfall mowing maintenance. Our mowing program, again, that's ongoing. It's overseen by the Public Works Department through a contract. Next item is an industrial or an economic development item, the Next Generation Industrial Park. Planning for an industrial park that would satisfy the needs of targeted users in terms of location, access, space, services, and amenities is the action item for that. the tasks identified here to locate 2 or 3 logical sites within the city limits or in areas that are capable of being served by utilities and then annexed in deadline of early 2017, March 2017. Contact landowners, attempt negotiations. Again, these are VEDC tasks in June of 17. Then develop infrastructure plan and cost estimates later in the year, and develop a funding plan for land and infrastructure, working jointly with the Sales Tax Development Corporation toward the end of 2017, and initiating a funding plan the following year. Regional Trade Center role is to stay focused on key partnerships, promotional efforts, and other initiatives that bolster Victoria as a regional hub for retail and services, education, healthcare, and other visitation. Our tasks here, primarily under our office and city manager's office, to continue our contract with the retail coach for retail recruitment, continue to assist retailers and developers with site identification, assistance with data, demographic data and otherwise, and facilitation through the development review process, which of course involves our office and primarily development services. These are all ongoing activities. Continue to market Victoria at retail trade shows, which we'll be doing next month at the Dallas Trade Show, retail trade show, and we'll recommending that we continue to do that. Tourism from sports tournaments and special events is our next action item on the agenda. Some of the tasks under this item is to secure a youth baseball tournament director. This is goes hand in hand with our softball tournament program that's been ongoing, where we're proposing to expand that to baseball tournaments in order to, again, increase or attract additional tournaments and increase participation in those ongoing tournaments. That's a Parks Department ongoing responsibility. Parks is going to explore the possibility of hosting the Texas Amateur Athletic Federation Winter Games. That's with a deadline of September of 2017. The more kind of general items here, continue to support event coordinators that host special events and sports events that attract overnight visitors to Victoria. It's an ongoing thing that the CVB does in coordination with all kinds of outside organizations that are planning events throughout the year and bring people into Victoria. And then to support those events hosted by local organizations with traditional online and social media advertising to tourists, again, a CVB activity. And that's the end of the community action agenda for 2017-2018. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, or any of the departments that submitted initiatives for this plan are here to answer specific questions if you have any.
Council? It's a lot of information.
It is.
Impressive. Not about just putting a binder on a shelf. That's
No,
for
sir, it's not worth much if you just adopt it and don't look at it.
Right. You guys are doing great. And this is a great presentation on one page. I like stuff like that.
Thank you.
So council, if there's no other business, and city manager tells me she has none, so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yes.